Racism. From slavery to the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement to the March in Charlottesville and even to the recent news about the governor of Virginia, racism has played the role in America's history, but it's still present today. So where do we stand on racism as a nation today? And what can we do, both as a nation and as individuals, to combat it? Joining me tonight, Xavier Warren of Congressional Partners to discuss those questions and more. All of that coming up right here, right now. I'm Sam Chen, and this is Face the Issues. Good evening and welcome to Face the Issues. I'm your host, Sam Chen. Thank you so much for joining us. Racism. It's been a part of America's history since our founding and beyond. From slavery to the Civil War, the Civil Rights Movement, and of course as recently as the 2017 March in Charlottesville, and the recent news surrounding both the governor and the Attorney General of Virginia, and countless news stories and situations in between. So where do we stand today as a nation, as communities, on this issue? And what can we do as individuals to help our communities continue to grow together? Joining me tonight is Xavier Warren, a partner at Congressional Partners, to discuss those very issues. Xavier, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
Thank you, Sam. I'm glad to be here.
It is an honor to have you here. For our viewers who don't know, you are a partner at Congressional Partners. You're based in Washington, D.C. One of the things we have in common is we both have a lot of different interests. And one of the things you do, you are a player agent with the NFL. So best of luck to you with the draft.
Thank you. Thank you. I man of many trades, but it was my childhood dream growing up. So that was my first call in, and before I got into government affairs. So been truly a blessing. Thank you for your best wishes.
Absolutely. And we're glad that you're involved in government affairs because we need good people involved there. And speaking of that, I mean, let's just jump in. This is a serious issue. It is an issue that has been talked about since the founding of our nation and beyond. And it's an issue in 2019 that hasn't gone away. I mentioned the opening, 2017, the March in Charlottesville. 2019, Governor Ralph Northam has the yearbook situation that breaks. And then Attorney General Mark Herring of Virginia also talking about how he previously wore blackface. Racism is not a thing of the past in our country. And you're involved in government, you're involved with athletics, you're involved in a lot of different facets of society. Let me ask you this, from your perspective, where do you see the current state of race relations in America?
Well, I would say as a short answer, at a polite stage, meaning that we as Americans in the United States, we view and talk about race relations in a polite manner, which at the end of the day doesn't solve or get to the root of the actual problem and actually start the process of healing. We have to get past that stage. Currently, right now, like you said, I know you spoke about Mark Herring and Governor Northam. As a Virginian myself, I grew up in Southern Virginia, proud Virginia. I went to college in Virginia as well. What we've seen in our at our capital in Richmond is something that we see too often, and it happens annually. It's been happening for years. It's all it's part of American history. And why does something like this continually happen on a regular basis? I mean, that's just what you just see on the political stage, but stuff like we've been seeing have been happening across college campuses, at jobs, in churches as well. And the reason why that the tensions are where they are now is because we are at a polite stage and we need to start the process of healing.
Wow, that's a deeply insightful point. Let me backtrack a little bit and start with the basics. A lot of times I think in conversations like this, people mistake what racism is. How do you define racism?
Well, I define racism as something that has that someone either an action that's either verbally or physically uh, being done that results in hurting someone else, or especially um, for the color of their skin. It could doesn't matter if they're white, black, Hispanic, Asian, or any other ethnicity. That's how I define racism. And just so you know, there's people out there that do it intentionally, but also unintentionally as well. And all of it goes back to uh, the need to be able to educate everyone about our respective and beautiful cultures, but also to be able to have the type of conversation that we need to have of understanding.
Yeah, I want to go to the point you said that sometimes it's oftentimes it's intentional, and we see that. You look at the march in Charlottesville. This is very, very intentional. They organized for this purpose. But you also mentioned that sometimes it's unintentional, and people may not mean or purposely intend for something, but it's still racially prejudiced or still racist. Could you give me an example or give our viewers an example of what that looks like?
I could give my personal account. Um, I used to, growing up, just in college, just like everyone else. Growing up, I had a regular 9 to 5 job, and at this company, it was it was a large company doing a lot of big business going on, and they had a culture around the office of more, if it's like more millennials, it was working there. So it was laid back, casual dressing. But, always, had a mindset of growing up. They always dress for the position I want. So I used to always show up in a suit and tie looking nice, just like you, Sam, every day. There was a coworker sitting in the next cubicle to mine. His name was Rob. And Rob and I would talk and get together. We found out we had similar interests. We talked about the stock market. We woke up. Every morning we watched CNBC. We would share each other investment portfolios. We would, we would share what we were looking at and what moves we wanted to make. And routinely, this I'll never forget. We would have individuals walk past us that were not Black and say phrases as in, "You all look like you all up to no good," or "You all like you about to start some trouble," or "What are you all," or say stuff as in, "Are you all staying out of trouble?" or phrases like that we used to laugh and look at each other like we're the only one in here with a suit on. why do we look like we're here in trouble? And I learned a hard lesson working at that company. And what I learned, Sam, was that when people view two individuals, especially African Americans, when they view them and they don't know what's going on, like they don't know what they're talking about, what they're planning in their action, in life in general, and this doesn't have to do with race as well, but I'm just taking it for an account as being an African American in America, that people typically, and majority of the time, create their own thoughts, and mostly it's going to be a negative perception. It's going to be a negative perception only if they knew exactly what we were talking about. And those experiences, and I'm sure other people have their accounts as African Americans, as Hispanics, as Asians, and also white as well. Those experiences growing up do play a part, and also hurtful as well, play a part in the way you view life.
Sure. Let me ask you about that. I mean, we said before, racism has been the problem. Obviously, when we look at America's history, we look at the slave problem that we had from our founding. The 3/5 compromise was driven by, it was a racially charged compromise. We look at the Dred Scott case. We look at all these different cases. Brown v. Board of Education. The fact that they even there had to be a legal decision in order to say that separate but equal is not equal. But then, throughout, to your point, not just this is racism knows no race. We had the entire movement of NENA, No Irish Need Apply, where they blocked Irish out of jobs. The treatment of Asians on the Transcontinental Railroad, obviously the Civil Rights Movement. And then we've mentioned Charlottesville already. And continuously these stories of whether it's African-American young men who are being shot or situations like with Governor Northam in Virginia. Why is this struggle so prevalent today? It's one of those things where you almost look at history and say, we should have figured that out 100 years ago. Why is that struggle so prevalent today?
Well, again, it's because we in America, we need to be more intentional of educating America, our citizens, about our own history, the good and the bad. I'm glad to hear you come on the show, and obviously you did your homework and you were able to provide some great resources of examples to show this happens over and over and over. And it reminded me, while you were giving those examples, it reminded me of Dr. Martin Luther King, when he says the phrase, I believe his quote went, when we fail to teach and educate about the past, then I don't know it's verbatim, but when we fail to educate and teach about the past, then it increases the chances of it repeating itself.
Right.
It's the same type of meaning, but we at America, and you look at in our schools today, we need to educate our youth and our citizens about the past, about slavery, about what happened with the Irish and the Asian, and what's going on about us as people. But it is American history beyond just the geographic locations in Jamestown, and also the colonies and the war and the founding of America. Not only just about American history, but one major part to also teach and educate our youth is that beyond slavery, a lot of people like to say, well, African Americans here, slavery. Well, we have to teach, as in healing that I spoke about previously, about how we were in Africa, and about how, we can't change about the past, but we were kidnapped, you could say, and put into forced labor, which is in longer term and short to be on slavery. So it's more starting the healing process of, we can't change the past, accept the past, and let's continue to walk in truth. Let's teach American history that we're teaching in school now, but let's teach all of American history.
I love that. I love that. Xavier, thank you. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Face the Issues. Xavier, thank you again for taking the time to join us. When we left off, one of the things you had talked about was the importance of education and the importance of educating. And I loved what you said, quoting Martin Luther King, about essentially, if we don't know our history, the good, the bad, and the ugly, if we don't know our history, then we're really going to be a people doomed to repeat it. I want to talk with you about solutions. You've talked a lot about education. Where does that begin? Is this some kind of institutional, legislative agenda we need to push, or is there some sort or some sense of individual responsibility that people like you and I and our colleagues have?
It's the latter, the individual. So that's a great point to pick out. This is something that we can actually do today, and it's something that I myself am currently doing in my own personal life. What we have to do as people, if we really want to bring healing, and we have to be intentional about communicating and being in relationship with people that do not look like us, people do not have the same financial status, people that do not have the same, maybe have different sexuality, views or preference, people who do not live in the same zip code as we do. Um, we have to go beyond our boundary and go and talk and be intentional about being in relationship with people, walking with people that have totally different views, so we could truly understand where they are coming from, their views. I mean, I'm currently walking with someone as well, and I tell you, Sam, we watch political situations and stuff that happens, and it could be non-political,
Yeah.
and just walking around and just having lunch with each other, and we can view the same situation from totally two different views. But we sit there because we're in relationship with each other. We're able to sit there and really talk it out. I mean, we get curious with each other about what happened, but not only like what happened, how did it make us feel? Like how did we view it? What we do? And once we have that conversation without any yelling or speaking over each other, the partner I'm walking with, he's able to, frame his thought with me in mind and how maybe I view it, and I can be able to do it likewise as well. And it's been mutual beneficial for both of us, and we have a great relationship from it.
I love that. And one of the things I really love about that is you don't seem to be focused on just how do I combat racism, how do I end prejudice. You're really focused on how do I build a good relationship and how do we build good communities and help better each other, which is very different than just how do I end the negative. I love that approach to saying how do we build a positive.
Correct. We spend majority of our time, and it's nothing that it's nothing extra that we have to do or an extra assignment. Is the gentleman I'm speaking about his name is Mark. Our relationship started with we're spiritual individuals, Sam. Started with Christ.
Yeah.
And once we end up building a friendship with each other, and we end up walking with each other. That when Charlottesville happens or when life happens, because we haven't healed as a country. So when Charlottesville happened, Mark had called me and said, when you saw Charlottesville happen on television, what was your first thought? Mm-hmm. Mark called me, when you see a black child, an unarmed black child killed at the hand of the police, how does that make you feel? And I share the same conversation with him. When you watch a State of the Union address, what did you hear? Mm-hmm. And it's like we're walking a life with each other, and we're experiencing life experiences together, but with a filter of friendship, with a filter with Christ involved as well, and most importantly, love. Because as you know, the golden rule is love your neighbor as you want to, and respect them as the way you want to respect yourself as well. And it's been truly a blessing.
That's great. Well, in light of that, let me ask you this. One of the things that happens a lot, you work in government, you see this, is every time an episode happens, so if we take Governor Northam, for example, every time an episode happens, immediate reaction is calls for resignation. So you heard Republicans calling for resignation. You heard at that point, every major Democrat potential candidate for president tweeted, resign immediately, resign now. And there's this instantaneous knee-jerk reaction of resign, and almost, it's unspoken, but there's almost a suggestion that if Governor Northam resigns, the problem is over. And if we're advising a politician, what we tell them, right, is just ride out the news cycle. Ride out the news cycle, the next biggest scandal, no one's talking about you again. There's obviously times where people need to resign, but is there a concern that this quick, let's just get this person out of the news cycle is not actually moving the conversation forward?
I totally agree with you. But it's all based on if he resigns or not. It's all based on his heart. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't solve the problem. Mm-hmm. It doesn't solve the problem. It actually it adds to the problem but it really just sugarcoats over it, because if someone resigned, then we never solved the issue. Like you said, we didn't educate someone about why this is wrong,
Mm-hmm.
and why as believers someone should be forgiven.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if they should stay in power or not, that's out of my decision. But like you said, is, when people say someone should resign, someone should resign. I mean, that's, as you know, that happens daily.
Yeah.
That happens daily, often, especially in politics. And I say, if someone did something wrong, then someone did something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But it needs to be a learning component to it, that we can have some healing, but also some understanding. Because there are some people that think he should resign. There's some people don't. But there should be some type of understanding with it that goes along with why an action is being done.
Mm-hmm.
And this goes beyond someone actually resign. That's going back to when I was sharing about a difference between having a polite conversation into it being intentional and being actually in a relationship with someone,
Mm-hmm.
and having an understanding and walking with them, dealing with these issues. Because today, as you see in the political atmosphere, we're quick to shut someone down, tell them to shut up, get them off the air. And we as people need to actually be in conversation with each other to get to the root of the actual problem.
Agreed. Last question on this. Some people, Xavier, will push back on that, and they would say that's too slow of a process. There's no way we can have all these conversations and 300 million Americans. There's no way we're going to get to all of them through the conversation. From your perspective, we're 50 years past Martin Luther King. He had a dream. How close, and his avenue was a lot like yours, reaching out to neighbors, having the conversation with your neighbors and your community. How close do you think we've gotten to Dr. King's dream? And moving forward, where do you hope to see the conversation go?
Well, thank you. I believe we actually made some great progress, but we still have a long ways to go. Because, and I want to just touch on what you said about some people say that might be slow. I'm not saying that the person should be in office, based on, I believe in the people. I believe in the good of people and his constituents and his, the state of Virginia. If they feel like that he needs to be removed, then that's their right to have that.
Sure.
They vote him into office. He's a public servant for the residents of Virginia. So if they want him to move, then that's their decision. We need to take a more approach of being a preventative and being proactive instead of reactive.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it goes back to the point as why does this continuously be able to happen, is because of we are taking, as you see in these instances, it's a reactive,
Mm-hmm.
knee-jerk reaction when someone is revealed or something happens, then we want to punish him, versus let's take the approach of preventative and proactive and teach not only youth, but also adults as well, because, I don't, beyond age, all of us have something to learn and contribute to the part of having America to be able to heal regarding race relations and to be able to carry on the torch that Martin Luther King has brought us this far today.
I agree. Xavier, thank you so much. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Face the Issues. Xavier, first, thank you so much for joining us, for your insights. This is a difficult topic. There's no one else I'd rather have the conversation with, so thanks for being here.
Thank you.
I want to talk a little bit. We mentioned at the very start of the program, you're a man of many interests. And so in addition to your work in government, you're a player agent with NFL players. You also have a clothing line. And kind of through all of that, one of the things that I've seen and really sheds light on your comments today too, is you are really in the business of team building and bring people together and building teams out like that. And everything that you do, you see that fingerprint. Why? Why is that such a passion for you, and why do you think that's so important?
Well, thank you, Sam. God has truly blessed me to be someone that I come up with a new business idea every single day. He has also positioned people in my life that I could see I could grow with and create opportunity. Uh, and so typically when I tell people when they meet me, I'm like, I'm just a visionary guy and I'm in the business of building relationships.
Mm-hmm.
I when the vision comes to my mind, I typically, like to surround myself around smart individuals, people that are passionate in that type of field, and build a team around that because I'm just one person. And if once you are able to build a team around the vision, then you could be able to have a greater impact beyond yourself and be able to serve the clients at the top level and be able to succeed for them as you will want them to be. So I just view myself, I mean, it's great. I work with a lot of great people at Congressional Partners, also at HOF Sports and also Believer. And with Believer, which is really great, is that, I recreated it to really donate 100% of the profits to nonprofits to help them grow their missions. So I'm in the business, everything that I do from government relations to also with sports and Believer, it's about how can I better impact people's lives? How can I be able to increase their careers and be able to help people around the world so they could be able to follow their dreams and also show that you could be able to do multiple things and live a beautiful life. Just putting teams around you. I couldn't have do it with my amazing team members. So thank you for bringing
That's awesome. Xavier, thank you so much. And that is all the time we have tonight. So thank you so much for tuning in. Continue this conversation with us online. Just use the hashtag #FaceTheIssues and join us again next week as we unpack another issue. My name is Sam Chen on behalf of all of us here at Face the Issues. Thank you and good night.